Margaret had always been a woman of unwavering faith, the kind of woman who clung to hope even when life seemed impossibly harsh. From the moment she married Ethan, she dreamed of becoming a mother. But the journey was long and grueling. 5 years of endless attempts, medical appointments, treatments, and silent nights filled with tears could have broken anyone. Yet, Margaret never let despair take hold. Each month was a cruel cycle of hope and heartbreak, but she held on to it all, believing that her miracle would come. "This time it's going to work. I can feel it," Margaret whispered one chilly Denver morning, gripping Ethan's hand as they prepared for yet another round of tests. The crisp air drifting in from the open window seemed almost to hold its breath with her. Ethan, ever her rock, smiled gently, his eyes warm with reassurance. "We'll make it happen, Maggie. I'm with you no matter what. And if not, we'll try again." Doctor visits became part of their rhythm, and Margaret endured them with quiet courage. Hormone injections, strict diets, and exhausting procedures became her new normal. But Ethan never left her side. He made her tea to calm her jittery nerves, researched specialists in Denver and beyond, and remained a constant presence through every setback. "You're the strongest woman I know," he said softly one evening, cradling her as she wept after yet another failed attempt. "You don't need to feel guilty, Maggie. Our time will come." Even in her deepest exhaustion, the simple words, "I love you, no matter what," were enough to refill her spirit and give her the strength to keep going. And then, one bright spring morning, it happened. Margaret stared at the small stick in her trembling hands, eyes wide in disbelief as the unmistakable signs appeared. She stumbled out of the bathroom, tears streaming, voice barely a whisper. "Ethan, look at this." He was in the living room, and when he saw the truth, he scooped her up into his arms, lifting her off the ground and spinning her around, laughter mingling with tears. "I told you. I knew our miracle would come," he exclaimed, breathless with joy. But the miracle didn't stop there. The ultrasound revealed not one, but 2 babies. Ethan's jaw dropped, then he laughed until tears rolled down his cheeks. 2 at once? Now our family's complete. Margaret was overwhelmed. She felt as if the universe had reached down and gifted her something beyond her wildest dreams. When Lily and Liam were born, their arrival transformed their home in Cherry Creek into a haven of joy. Flowers covered the doorway, relatives showered them with hugs, and the happiness that filled the house was almost unbearable in its intensity. The first months were a whirlwind of sleepless nights, bottles, and cries that echoed through the hallways, but Margaret savored every chaotic moment. Her heart overflowed with love for her children, and she believed Ethan shared the same devotion. Despite long hours at work, he returned home with small gifts for the twins, kisses, and tender words for her. "You're an incredible mom, Maggie. I'm so proud of you," he said one evening, cradling Lily in his arms while Liam gurgled nearby. Margaret captured every milestone, the first smile, the first laugh, and showed Ethan every photo and video. His fascination mirrored her own. "Look, they already recognize your voice," she'd laugh, watching as the babies' faces lit up at their father's presence. Ethan would grin and tease. "Guess they got their charm from me, huh?" Even amid the exhaustion, Margaret felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She truly believed they were living the dream of a perfect family. Yet, life has a way of unraveling even the most beautiful dreams. Slowly, almost imperceptibly, Ethan began coming home later and later, always with some excuse about urgent projects or meetings. Immersed in the twins' daily needs, Margaret noticed but found it plausible. After all, raising children was expensive and work could be demanding. She convinced herself that he was simply working to provide for their future. But the loneliness began to creep in during quiet moments. Margaret would find herself staring at the baby monitor, a pang of unease settling in her chest, only to brush it away. Outwardly, everything appeared fine. Ethan was still affectionate, praised her endlessly, and spoke lovingly of their children's future. "When they're older, I'm taking them to see the world," he said one evening, smiling at Lily and Liam, eyes soft with a warmth that made her heart swell. Margaret felt safe, loved, and blessed with a husband she believed was her true partner. She could not have imagined the dark secret he hid, a secret that would turn her world upside down. While Margaret poured every ounce of her energy into the twins, Ethan was slipping away, not to work, but into an affair with Paige, his secretary. Paige was sharp, ambitious, and intimately familiar with every detail of Ethan's life. She wasn't merely a lover. She was an accomplice in a plan that would make Margaret's blood run cold. Paige had contacts interested in acquiring the twins, a wealthy couple who could not have children, and she was the one who tempted Ethan, feeding his greed and visions of instant wealth. Blinded by the promise of luxury and power, Ethan began negotiating, sending photos and detailed information about the twins' routines and health. Paige managed all communication, but Ethan remained in control, determined to oversee every step. Their scheme was meticulous, a silent threat lurking behind the facade of normalcy. To Margaret, Ethan was simply a busy husband. To Paige, he was the perfect partner in a crime that chilled the soul. Then, one ordinary evening, the world Margaret knew shattered. She had gone to put the twins to bed and realized she'd left her phone in the living room. Passing by Ethan's study, she noticed his laptop open. Curiosity nudged her closer, and what she saw made her blood freeze. Emails sprawled across the screen, photos of Lily and Liam attached, with cold, calculated messages discussing prices as if they were objects. Margaret's hands shook violently. For a moment, she thought she was dreaming, but the nightmare was real. The father of her children was selling them. Heart pounding, she grabbed her own phone and took photos of the screen. Every word and image burned into her memory. The betrayal tore at her soul, but she knew there was no time to waste. She couldn't confront Ethan without evidence, nor could she risk her children's safety. She had to act, and she had to act quickly. The following morning, Margaret awoke with a heavy weight on her chest, but determination flared brighter than fear. She forced herself to act normal as Ethan left for work, masking the storm raging inside her. Then she called Gavin, her oldest friend and a man she trusted implicitly. "Gavin, I need you. I don't know what to do, but I can't let him hurt my children." Her voice trembled, but her words were firm. "Calm down, Maggie. I'll help you." "Show me everything you found," he replied without hesitation. When Gavin arrived at her Cherry Creek home, Margaret showed him the photos and told him everything she had discovered. He studied every detail meticulously, jotting down names, dates, and the recipients' email addresses. "These messages leave no doubt, Maggie. He's selling the kids. But we need more proof, and we need to know who's helping him. Did you notice any unusual names or signatures?" Margaret nodded grimly, her mind already racing through the steps they would take to protect Lily and Liam. She knew the road ahead would be dangerous, but she also knew she would face it head-on. Her children's safety and the truth came first, no matter the cost. Margaret sat on the edge of the sofa, her mind racing as she pieced together the clues from the email. She frowned, her heart sinking as a realization struck. At the end of the email, it said, "Paige will take care of everything." That seemed odd back then, but now it makes sense. Paige is his secretary, always hovering, always calling him after hours. Gavin leaned forward, pen poised over his notebook, his brow furrowed. "Paige, did you ever suspect anything between her and Ethan?" Margaret hesitated, recalling subtle interactions she had once dismissed, the lingering glances at company parties, the exaggerated laughter, the ease with which Paige seemed to insert herself into Ethan's personal life. "Now that you mention it, I always thought she was a little too familiar with him, but I never imagined they were lovers. I was blind, Gavin. So blind." Gavin reached across the table and placed a firm, reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You trusted the man you loved, Maggie. That's not foolish. What matters now is protecting your children." With Paige identified, Gavin's network went to work. Within days, he traced suspicious financial transfers, analyzed phone logs, and uncovered a pattern of late-night communications between Ethan and Paige. "They're in this up to their necks, Maggie," Gavin said gravely, flipping through the files. "And from what I see, Paige isn't just an accomplice. She's running the show. She's the one liaising with the buyers directly." Margaret felt a mix of fury and relief. Fury at the betrayal, relief at finally understanding the magnitude of what she was facing. One evening, as Ethan showered, Margaret's resolve crystallized. She slipped into his office, her hands shaking, and scrolled through his phone. Her heart raced as she found the damning texts from Paige. Everything's ready for Saturday. The buyers already confirmed the deposit. Her hands trembled as she photographed the conversations and sent them immediately to Gavin. Within moments, his reply appeared. Now we've got everything. We'll catch them in the act. Margaret took a deep breath, the weight of what was coming pressing down on her like a storm cloud, but with it came a spark of hope. Soon it would all be over. The next morning, Gavin arrived at her Cherry Creek home, clipboard and phone in hand, ready to finalize the plan. You have to act normal, Maggie, he instructed firmly. Don't let him see the slightest hint of suspicion. My team and I will track every step Ethan and Paige take. Once they confirm the meeting spot, we move in. Margaret nodded, voice breaking as she clutched his hands. I just want my kids safe, Gavin. I don't care what happens to me. He met her gaze with unwavering intensity. You're stronger than you think. And you're not alone. Saturday dawned heavy and suffocating. Margaret hadn't slept a minute, nerves fraying as she watched Ethan pace the living room, phone in hand, fingers tapping out rapid messages to Paige. By midday, he tried to mask his tension with a forced smile. Maggie, I was thinking of taking the kids to the park. They haven't been out in days, and there's a new one near my office. Fresh air will do them good, and I can swing by work afterward to finish some things. Margaret's heart froze, but she maintained a calm facade. She smiled tightly and replied firmly, Of course. Just don't take too long. They get fussy and won't sleep on time. Ethan, reassured, gathered bottles, diapers, and the twins, hustling out the door as Margaret watched from the window. Her chest tightened with anxiety, but she forced herself to trust Gavin's plan. The moment Ethan turned the corner, she called him. He left with the twins. Please, Gavin, don't let anything happen to them, her voice quivered. Stay calm, Maggie. We're on him. Once he reaches the hotel, we act. Gavin's voice was steady, unwavering. In the car, Ethan's hands were jittery, constantly checking messages from Paige. All set, babe. They're here. Come straight to room 1207. On my way, he typed back, trying to mask the anxiety twisting his stomach. Lily and Liam slept peacefully in their car seats, oblivious to the danger their father was carrying them into. Ethan whispered reassurances to himself, attempting to quiet the guilt that gnawed at his conscience, though he knew no justification could ever make this right. At the hotel, Paige met him at the entrance, smiling as she took the babies in her arms. Leaning close, she murmured, Everything will be fine. Trust me. Inside room 1207, the wealthy couple awaited, eyes shining with a mix of anticipation and desperation. When they laid eyes on the twins, tears sprang to their eyes. The negotiation began. Documents exchanged, a suitcase of cash passed, tension so thick it seemed to crush the air. Ethan hesitated, his gaze falling on Lily and Liam, but Paige squeezed his hand, silently reminding him it was too late to turn back. The moment Ethan handed the twins over, the door flew open. Gavin and his team stormed in, police officers at the ready, weapons drawn. Police. Nobody move. Pandemonium erupted. Ethan stammered, trying to explain himself, but Gavin pushed him to the ground, cuffing him without mercy. You have no idea what you've done, Ethan. You'll pay for every tear you made Maggie cry, Gavin spat, voice cold with disappointment. Paige froze, stunned, and was swiftly taken into custody without a word. The couple's claims of entitlement were dismissed, and they too were escorted out. A female officer scooped up Lily and Liam, cradling them gently as she carried them to safety. The twins were unharmed, their innocent eyes blinking up at the chaos around them. Gavin immediately called Margaret. Maggie, it's over. Your children are safe. You were stronger than you ever imagined. Margaret collapsed to her knees, tears streaming down her face, the weight of fear finally lifting. Through choked sobs, she whispered, Thank you, Gavin. You saved my family. The following days were a blur of legal proceedings, police statements, and a roller coaster of emotions. The betrayal still burned, but the relief of having Lily and Liam safe overshadowed everything else. Gavin remained steadfast by her side, handling paperwork, accompanying her to meetings, and ensuring that not a single moment of the twins' safety was left to chance. Margaret discovered a strength within herself she hadn't known existed. With Gavin's unwavering support, a lifeline in the storm, she began to rebuild a life finally free from Ethan's lies and the shadow of danger he had brought into their home. Hope, once a distant whisper, became her guiding light. The trial against Ethan and Paige had captivated Denver, transforming into a scandal that the city wouldn't soon forget. Margaret walked into the marble halls of the courthouse, the morning sunlight reflecting off the polished floors and casting long shadows along the walls. She sat in the very first row, her posture poised and resolute, with Gavin right beside her, his presence steady and reassuring. The atmosphere inside the courtroom was thick, almost suffocating, charged with murmurs and the low hum of cameras. Reporters crowded every corner, their lenses flashing intermittently, capturing every subtle twitch and expression. Yet, despite the press, all eyes seemed drawn to her, the woman who had dared to stand up to her own husband to protect her children. Ethan's defense was predictably hollow. He attempted to weave a story of pressure and necessity, claiming every action had been intended to secure a better future for his family. But the words fell flat against the meticulous evidence Gavin and the prosecution had amassed. Emails, texts, financial records, and eyewitness accounts all painted a damning picture. Paige said nothing, not a word, not even a glance at Margaret, fully aware that there was no defense for the role she had played in the betrayal and attempted sale of Lily and Liam. Margaret listened in quiet resolve, her chin held high, fingers gripping Gavin's tightly whenever a wave of emotion threatened to overwhelm her. Memories of every sleepless night, every tear shed in secret, washed over her. But with those memories came an unexpected sense of pride. She had never surrendered. She had fought relentlessly for her children, and today, that fight had led her here. When the judge finally spoke, his voice steady and unyielding, announcing the sentences for Ethan and Paige, Margaret felt as though a great weight had been lifted from her shoulders. Relief and justice mingled in her chest, an intoxicating release after years of fear and uncertainty. The wealthy couple who had sought to buy her children were punished as well, and for the first time in years, justice had been served openly and undeniably. Stepping out of the courthouse into the crisp Denver afternoon, Margaret was met with a small wave of applause and respectful nods from passers-by and onlookers. But all that truly mattered was the knowledge that Lily and Liam were safe, that she could finally breathe without fear, and that the nightmare had ended. In the months that followed, Margaret devoted herself entirely to rebuilding her life and nurturing her children. Every day was filled with their laughter, their milestones, and the tender routines of parenthood she had once dreamed of. Gavin remained unwaveringly by her side, helping care for the twins, handling practicalities, and offering a friendship that had grown into something she could trust completely. Slowly, she realized that happiness was not only possible, it was within reach. She learned to honor herself, to trust her strength, and to believe she deserved a life free from lies and betrayal. Margaret's story began to resonate with others, quietly becoming a source of inspiration for women navigating their own struggles. She refused to allow the past to dictate her future. Every glance at Lily and Liam reminded her of what she had fought for, and in the calm, steady presence of Gavin, she discovered that life could still hold moments of peace, warmth, and even joy. The past no longer chained her. Margaret moved forward with a courage born from the deepest trials, ready to author a new story with her own hand. She understood now that when trust is broken within the home, the loneliness can be unbearable, but even in the darkest betrayals, a quiet strength rises from the love we carry for those who depend on us. There is always a chance to begin again, to reshape the course of your life, and to find support in places you never expected. Every new beginning carries the courage of someone who refuses to stay silent in the face of injustice, someone who transforms pain into protection and dignity. Time may never erase the scars, but it teaches that no one has to carry betrayal alone. There is always space to rebuild, to trust again, and to find happiness, even after the storm. You just heard this one from Stories by Sue. If it resonated, don't forget to like and subscribe. What are your thoughts? Share them in the comments, I'd love to hear. Thanks for watching.